In this section, we're going to simplify each of the following numerical expressions. So in number 1, we've got an addition of two numbers with opposite signs. First one's positive, second one's negative. Now, according to the instructions, what we do is we take the absolute value of each number. Now, you can probably do this in your head, but I'll write it all out. Absolute value of the first number, 2, is 2. The absolute value of the second number, negative 6, is 6. Now, the instructions say take the larger absolute value, which is 6, subtract the smaller absolute value, which is 2. Now, that gives us 4. But then you choose the sign associated with the larger absolute value. Now, that's a lot of words, but look for the larger absolute value, negative 6, and use that sign. All right, so that sign is negative. So on this 4 here, I'm going to attach a negative sign. So I'm going to say that 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4. Now, a lot of this you can just do in your head. If you just think, okay, here's a number line. Here's 0. I start out here at 2, and then I subtract, right? I subtract, so I'm going to go to the left. I subtract 6, so I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? I'm going left 6, so where does that put me? That puts me over here at negative 4. All right, so we're gonna state then that 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4. Now, second problem is just 11 minus 3. Now, we know 11 minus 3 is 8. Look at it a couple ways. If I take the absolute value of 11, I get 11. If I take the absolute value of 3, I get 3. Now, take the larger absolute value, which is 11, subtract the smaller absolute value, which is 3. So I'm looking at this now. Take the larger absolute value, subtract the smaller absolute value, and that gives me 8. Use the sign associated with the larger absolute value. Now, the larger absolute value is 11. Its sign is positive. So I'm going to attach a positive 8 to this. All right, so that would be positive 8 or just 8. Now, that's a long way to go through it. And, of course, nobody would really do it like this unless they're trying to show in detail that it follows the instructions on adding sign numbers. But we all know 11 minus 3 is 8, so what do? You just write 8. Now, number 3, we've got negative 4 minus negative 3. Now, notice how I'm reading that. This sign here, I'm not going to read it as a minus. A minus means a subtraction, and a subtraction you have to have between two numbers. So I'm going to read this as negative. This is negative 4. Now, this sign here is a minus because it's between two numbers. So I got negative 4 minus 3. Now, we've got a subtraction here, right? Negative 4 minus 3. So I'm subtracting. So what I do is I turn, according to the instructions now, I turn subtraction into an addition. So I'm going to change this subtraction right here into an addition. It'll look like this. Negative 4 plus, now the opposite of 3, right, here's my number. The opposite of 3 is negative 3. Now I'm adding two numbers with the same sign. Right, I've got an addition of two numbers with the same sign. So the rule for this one is to find their absolute values. The absolute value of negative 4 is 4. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Then you add their absolute values. So I get 4 plus 3. And 4 plus 3 is clearly 7. Now what do I do? Well, because I'm adding two numbers, right? I'm adding two numbers with the same sign. They're both negative. You get this result, and then you put on the common sign. So I've got that 7. Now on the 7, I'm going to put on the negative sign, right? That's the common sign. So just attach that negative to it. So I'm going to write this as negative 7. So all in all, we're saying that negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. Now, if you look at this on the number line, it makes sense on the number line. Suppose there's 0. Right, the first number is negative 4. So I'm going to move 4 units to the left. Now, 4 units to the left puts me here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going 4 to the left. That puts us out here at negative 4. Then I'm going to add right? I'm going to move back up here now. I'm going to add, so I keep going in the same direction, negative 3. So I'm going to go 3 to the left. So go 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3. Now where does that put us? That puts us at negative 7. Number 4, we've got negative 2 minus negative 6. Now let me just do this two ways. Here's the first way. According to the rules, I've got a subtraction. So the first thing I do is to change subtraction to addition of the opposite. So I'm going to write this right up as negative 2. That subtraction is going to become addition. Now what is the opposite of negative 6? Well, the opposite of negative 6 is positive 6. Now, if you know this, what is negative 2 plus 6, right? Suppose you're down 2 units. You're down 2 units, like you're down $2, and then you get $6. Where are you? Well, you're up $4. So negative 2 plus 6 is 4. Now, if we do this according to the rules, right every step, you take the absolute value of each number. The absolute value of negative 2 is 2. The absolute value of negative 6 is 6. So I'm going back up here to my original expression. My two numbers are negative 2, negative 6. So now I have their absolute values, and according to the rule for subtraction, you take the larger absolute value, subtract the smaller absolute value, and that's it. So now I'm going to conclude that negative 2 minus negative 6 is 4. But here's another way I think a lot of us think about this. If you start here at negative 2 minus negative 6, you see that minus a negative? All right, I just think negative negative is positive, right? Double negative. So I think negative 2 plus 6. And then where am I? I'm adding two numbers with opposite signs, so I just subtract 4, and then I take the sign of the larger absolute value, which is 6. So I just get 4. Much faster way to do it, and I think that's how most of us think about doing that. So in problem 5, we've got some fractions. First thing I'm going to do here, though, is I'm going to think this. See this minus a negative? I'm going to think that's a positive. It's not really strictly according to the rules, but it always works. So minus a negative, I'm just going to think that as a positive, negative, negative. So I'm going to think of this problem as negative 2/5 plus 9/7. Now what I need to do here is I need to get an LCD, right? Get the least common denominator. Get the LCD. Now what is the smallest number that both 5 and 7 divide into? Not the smallest number that divides into them, but what is the smallest number that they both divide into? I'm going to say it's 35, because 5 divides into 35 evenly, 7 divides into 35. So I'm going to change each one of these denominators to 35s. Right, so I'm going to write negative something over 35 plus something over 35. Now, if I change the bottoms, how do I have to change the tops? All right, so I started with a 2. Now just think about this. What did you do to the 5? What did you multiply 5 by to get to 35? Well, you just divide it into it, right? 5 times 35 divided by 5 is 7. So you multiplied it by 7. So I'm going to multiply by 7. And over here, how do I change the 9? 9 times what? Well, take the LCD and divide it by your number 7, right? So what did I multiply 7 by to get 35? Well, 35 divided by 7 is 5, so I must have multiplied this thing by 5. All right, so here's what we have now. We now have negative 14 over 35 plus 45 over 35. Now I've got two fractions with the same denominator, so I can just write one big fraction with that denominator, and now I've got negative 14 plus 45. So let's go back up to the top here. We're going to have something over 35. So what do we have? Now can you do it in your head here? What do you get? They have opposite signs, so just run a subtraction and use the number part that has a bigger sign. So it's going to be positive, right? I'm going to take 45 minus 14. That's how I'm going to think of this. 45 minus 14. Okay, so what I'm thinking now is this. I'm thinking this. 45 minus 14, well, that turns out to be what? 31. So I'm going to write this problem now as 31 over 35.